Hey everyone, Quissy here, and after a plethora of updates in March, we did manage to gain more ground and progress with some new updates to Classic in April. Over the past month, we received several more exciting tidbits of news that I'm going to cover in this video as I did in last month's video, which I linked in the description below if you'd like to catch up. But first, I just want to say how exciting April has been for me personally. I was asked to be on Classic Cast with S-Fan Stay Safe Tips, where we discussed loot trading, sharding, the Alterac Valley news, and much more. I want to give a shout out and thank those guys again for having me on. I've linked the video in the description below if you'd like to check it out. Now let's get started on the April updates. April 8th, 2019. Classic PvP Content Plan. Our first update was on April 8th, and it was a big reveal for the Classic PvP Content Plan. Essentially, they incorporated PvP into 6 phases as they originally did with the PvE content. Let's go over that quickly. Phase 1 at the WoW Classic launch. You could PvP one another in the world, but there will be no tracking, no formal rewards, no honor system, no gear, or anything like that. So basically it's just a free-for-all. Phase 2 is when the honor system will come into play, including dishonorable kills, as well as PvP rank rewards. So here's where players can begin farming honor, however in a non-battleground setting, because we'll have to wait till Phase 3 for the first battlegrounds to come out, which will be Alterac Valley and Warsong Gulch. So again, those are coming out in Phase 3. Phase 4 is when Arathi Basin will be released. No updates for Phase 5 so far, but in Phase 6, world PvP objectives in Silithus and the Eastern Plague Lands will become available. When each content phase will release and for how long is yet to be determined. So carrying over to last month, we already had our discussion on the state of Alterac Valley appearing as it was in 1.12. This content phase announcement, to me, seemed to be met with some mixed feelings. Essentially, this means that the honor system is releasing first in Phase 2, before Battlegrounds. In Phase 1, nothing is going on, but in Phase 2 you'll have the ability to rank, buy PvP gear, etc. But without Battlegrounds, how will players rank? The answer is World PvP. At first reaction, this sounds awesome. I always love World PvP, and in retail I keep War Mode on constantly. I think it adds an entire other dimension to the game, but where the concern arises is, for those looking up to rank up quickly in Phase 2, without Battlegrounds, how will they farm honor? A lot of people express concern about flight path camping, ganking players from those areas, and so on, which could in turn lead to some toxicity. In my opinion, this has all been done before, but on what scale? I remember flying into zones, and as you're about to land, you notice dead NPCs, your flight master's missing, you see some skeletons on the ground, and as you dismount, you take a deep breath, look around, and try to get to safety. That was just the way of life on a PvP server. But my question is, will this be on a much larger scale? Will this be a lot more frequent as a result? On a PvP server, it's a free-for-all, so you always have to be on your game and aware of your surroundings. My whole mentality is to not worry too much about it and just kind of deal with it as it happens. Kind of a good way to look at life in general too, don't you agree? Other people have concerns that in Phase 2, the 1.12 PvP gear becomes available from the honor system. And we'll talk about the itemization announcement later on in this video, but I think getting access to these top-tier armor and weapons from PvP will take a lot longer than people think. To get to Grand Marshal or High Warlord is going to take at least 12 weeks. At least. And that's farming every day. If you start at the beginning of Phase 2 doing that, Phase 3 may already be out by the time you even hit rank 14. It's a lot harder and time-consuming than people may think. So I don't think that people will gain a huge advantage by having access to these top-tier PvP weapons and armor as early on, seeing as I still think it'll take quite some time to gain access to them, and only a limited number of people will actually reach rank 14. What do you guys think about this topic? April 14th, 2019. Clarification on loot trading. The next update wasn't a big one, but more of a clarification. In it, CM Bornak stated that the customer service team will not be transferring items in WoW Classic as per their loot trading announcement, which TLDR, you'll be able to loot trade in raids, but not 5-mans. Submitting a ticket will not result in resolving any further loot issues. This basically reinforces the issue that if you ninja loot, there are consequences and bad reputations that can form as a result of that. April 20th, 2019, Employee Alpha Testing. A few days after the loot trading clarification, data miners began to notice that new entries were appearing in Blizzard's CDN, Content Delivery Network, which is basically a network of servers that hold files and data for accessibility purposes. Blizzard primarily uses their CDN to distribute content patches and updated game data. People went a little overboard with this one, assuming that a beta was looming on the horizon, but a few more days later, Bornak returned to the forums to clarify what exactly was going on. In short, Blizzard is doing an internal employee-only alpha beta test for WoW Classic, and aside from that, there are no further announcements to be made. Well, I'm glad they clarified it, but it makes me wonder, how long will the internal alpha last? Will there be a public alpha, a closed beta, an open beta? The fact that Blizzard employees are playing WoW Classic at this very moment is pretty freaking cool, but just makes me itch to play the game even more. And leaves me with one question. Blizzard, are you hiring? April 26th, 2019. Itemization in WoW Classic. The final update of April was the announcement of the itemization plan for WoW Classic. In this lengthy update, the TLDR is basically, WoW Classic will only include 1.12 versions of gear. As many class abilities, talents, and gear evolved over the many content patches, since WoW Classic is based off patch 1.12, they felt it easiest to keep the gear as it was in that patch. At surface value, this is understandable to me. It seems logical seeing as we are getting the 1.12 version of Classic, but what other people are concerned about is gaining access to powerful gear at an early stage in the game. For example, 1.12 items are considered more powerful than how they had been in previous patches. One example I saw come up quite a few times was Bone Reaver's Edge, where the original only reduced armor by 300, but by patch 1.12 had the ability to reduce armor by 700, stacking up to 3 times, and give plus 16 stamina. But in reality, Bone Reaver's Edge is a really freaking rare item, and it's not like every Joe Schmo is gonna have one. So what do you guys think about examples like that? Essentially, you have items, abilities, and talents that have been tuned for 1.12, and at that point, could be considered AQ40 and Nax caliber, raising concerns about how quickly and early on players will gain their best-in-slot gear, and for how long it'll be considered best-in-slot. Will you be able to use certain gear from Molten Core all the way through AQ40? In essence, however, I think it'll take the focus off trying to anticipate every tiny change coming to the game, and instead focus more on the community and gameplay. From the standpoint of your everyday player, a lot of the items early on in the game were kinda bad and unusable when you take a closer look at their stats or equip bonuses. As a result, lots of gear was disenchanted or disregarded. With the updates that came to itemization, this will make players feel more rewarded for gaining loot that actually works for their class and spec. Does that seem fair to you guys though? I'm curious to keep the conversation going and hear everybody's opinion on it. So that's it for the April updates that I've got for you. As for what still hasn't been addressed, the big things looming on the horizon are right-click reporting, sharding, any sort of alpha, beta, or PTR news, and finally, the release date. As always, thanks for watching. April has been a really exciting month for me. As I stated earlier, I had the awesome experience of being on Classic Cast, which I linked in the description below. I've also been ramping up my classic Wowhead guides, so be sure to also check those out. There will be more to come in the future, so hit the subscribe button and don't forget to hit the bell to receive notifications when I upload a new video. Give the video a thumbs up if you like it, and drop a comment below to let me know your thoughts. I livestream on Twitch, so be sure to follow me at Quissy TV over there so we can chat all about this in real time. You can also follow me at Quissy TV on Twitter. Thanks again for taking the time to watch this video, and I hope you have a great day.